Alrighty, so this is my presentation by me. So I chose competency 3, patterns and algebra. The teacher understands concepts related to patterns, relations, and functions and algebraic reasoning. I specifically chose E, how to identify, extend, and create patterns using concrete models, figures, numbers, and algebraic expressions. So, what does this mean? This means the teacher should know how to recognize patterns in shapes, numbers, and objects, continue or complete a pattern presented, make new patterns using tools like blocks, drawings, numbers, or simple math expressions. So, there are different types of patterns. So, you have three main categories of patterns, which are repeating patterns, growing patterns, and shrinking patterns. But within each of those patterns, there's three separate categories of the repeating, growing, and shrinking patterns. You have shape, number, and letter patterns. So, repeating patterns. Repeating patterns have some repetition in them. Shapes, colors, numbers, etc. can be a repeating pattern. Example 2, 4, 2, 4, 2, 4. This is a repetitive pattern in numbers. For letters, you have A, B, A, B, A, B, A, B, A, B, etc. And then for the shapes down here, you have the circle, triangle, circle, triangle, circle, triangle. Growing pattern. A growing pattern is a pattern where the shapes or numbers are placed in the increasing form or each number is greater than the previous number. Examples in the numbers would be the 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, etc. And then the shape would be the 1 ball, the 2 ball, 3, 4. It's going up by 1, and this is going up by 2 every time. So, opposite of the growing patterns, you have the shrinking patterns. Shrinking patterns are created by decreasing the number by a constant difference. Examples in the numbers is 20, 18, 14, 16, etc. Or the shape is the 10, 8, 6. So, different strategies in teaching patterns. There are many different strategies to use when teaching students about patterns. Hands on activities provide concrete objects to the student to create and extend patterns. This is essential in the very beginning as well, using concrete manipulatives, something for them to physically move, especially in younger elementary grades. Visual representation, have students draw patterns using shapes, colors, or lines. Interactive games, you could play a pattern recognition game trying to figure out what comes next. This can be easily created on Google Slides as well. Example of this game is actually Next. I just created it just for like an idea. So what comes next? You have this pattern of a circle, trapezoid, triangle, circle, trapezoid, triangle, circle. So what would come next? And then these are your options: a circle, a trapezoid, or a triangle. And the correct answer is a trapezoid. So this is an example of a repetition pattern. And then this is an example of a growing pattern. So you have 1, 2, 3, and 4. So what would come next? Would it be 3? Would it be 4? Or would it be 5? And the answer is 5. So remember, help students to recognize and identify patterns. Some activities to help this level of blooms would be the following: show simple patterns and ask students to name the repeating parts. Provide real life examples such as stripes on animals or seasons. It asks students the following question: what are some examples of patterns you see in the room? Give them some time to look around and figure it out and ask for some hands and ask to hear their answers. Understand. Ensure students can describe and explain patterns. An activity to help with this level of blooms would be the following: have the students answer this question in a think, pair, share with their table partners. In your own words, describe any of the patterns we went over. So that could be number, shape, letter, color. That could be repetition, growing, or shrinking. Give them some time and then have one of the table partners share their answer out loud. Applying. Teach students to use patterns in real world situations. Some activities to help with this level of blooms would be the following: have students complete patterns by predicting what comes next. Use manipulatives like blocks or beads to physically recreate given patterns. Solve problems that involve recognizing or extending number patterns. Example of this would be the 2, 4, 6. What comes after 6 would be 8, and what would come after 8 would be 10. So them recognizing that this it's going up by 2 every time. So if they need to know what this number is, but they don't have this number, they know that you go up by 2 to get to here, and then another 2 to get to here. Analyzing. Teach students to compare, classify, and find the rules behind patterns. Some activities to help this is ask students to sort different patterns into categories, such as shapes, colors, numbers, or letters, and then challenge students to identify the rule behind a number or shape sequence. So example of this, again, would be the 2, 4, 6, 8, and the rule is that the number is consistently going up by 2, which they could put into an algebraic expression of x times 2, or 2x. Evaluating. Encourage students to assess and critique patterns. Some activities to help this level of blooms would be the following. Ask students to explain why a certain sequence is a pattern or why it is not a pattern. Compare two patterns and evaluate which one is more complex or interesting. For example of this, have them compare a repeating pattern or a shrinking pattern or a growing pattern. Have them determine which one's more complex. Creating. Inspire students to invent and describe their own patterns. Some activities to help with this level of blooms would be the following. Challenge students to create their own repeating or growing patterns using shapes or numbers, and have them create a pattern-based puzzle or game for the classmates to solve. So, why are patterns important in everyday life? Patterns are important in so many different aspects of everyday life, including the following. Making predictions. Patterns help us anticipate what will happen next, like knowing when the seasons change to planning for reoccurring events. Solve problems. Recognize patterns help us find solutions such as identifying trends in data or organizing tasks efficiently. Understanding relationships. Patterns reveal connections between things, like how speed affects distance and how ingredients combine in cooking. What implications for you as an educator in your future classroom? 1. Building foundational skills. Patterns are a stepping stone for math, science, and problem solving. You need to create engaging lessons that help students develop these essential skills and keep them entertained. If it's a constant just throwing knowledge at them, especially depending on their age, they're not going to catch on. That's not an engaging lesson for them. 2. Encourage encouraging critical thinking. Teaching patterns will promote logical reasoning and analytical thinking. You design activities that challenge students to recognize, extend, and create patterns, fostering a deeper understanding. 3. Cater to different learning styles. Patterns can be taught visually, kinesthetically, or through auditory methods. You need to plan diverse activities to meet the needs of all of the learners in your classroom. What are important takeaways that we should know? 1. Start simple and build on the complexity of patterns. Begin with basic patterns and gradually introduce to more challenging ones. You're not going to teach growing patterns if they do not even know what repetition patterns are. You need to start with the repetition because they're the most simple, and then work your way up to the gradual, more challenging ones, which would be shrinking and growing. 2. Use hands-on and real-life examples. Incorporate objects, drawings, sounds, and everyday contexts like nature or routines to make patterns relatable and engaging. Manipulatives are super important with patterns, especially when you first start teaching patterns to the younger grades. Encourage creation and exploration. Let students make their own patterns and explain their reasoning, fostering creativity and a deeper understanding. Questions. So these are the questions that I want y'all to answer. You can just put them in a Word document and type out the question and then the answer that you think to the questions, and then just put it in add it to the reply section of the discussion board under my name. So 1, what strategies do you think would be most effective for helping students identify and extend patterns in both math and real life situations? How do you differentiate pattern instruction to meet the needs of different learners in your classroom? And 3, how can you incorporate patterns into other subject areas to enhance student learning? And then these are my references just for the 2 pictures I did. But yeah, that is everything. So thank you.